Hey, welcome to the weekly dance tutorial. I have a special guest with me. This is James. Say hi, James.
Hello, how's it going?
You gotta speak into the mic.
Hello, how's it going?
Sick, now they could hear you. So before we begin this tutorial, make sure you've properly stretched, okay? And that could be your arms, your neck, your shoulder, whatever you want it to be. Okay, let's begin. So for this tutorial, we're gonna learn some waving fundamentals, specifically tracing. Okay, so with tracing, that means we got one hand that does the tracing and the other one does the waving. All right, we'll stick to the basics for today. We're gonna do one and the other one, okay? So one hand's gonna have one roll, the other hand's gonna have another roll. So if you don't know what a wave is, you can check back at my old tutorials to learn how to do a hand wave. Okay, this is a hand wave, by the way, not this. Although you can wave like that, right? There's a little extra nugget there for you. Let's start off with, are you right-handed or left-handed?
I'm right-handed.
He's right-handed. Okay, so let's make this our drawing hand or our tracing hand, right? So if you can write your name or draw, if you can't draw, that's fine, but this is the hand that makes things happen, right? That's called the tracing hand. So your tracing hand could do a couple of things. You could do a pointer finger to literally say, look at this right here. You're pointing, right? You want to use this to point, so people that are watching where the wave is at, you're pointing and telling them, right? You're communicating and saying, this is where the stuff's happening, right? Because if I go like this, you automatically looked. See that? And that's how it works, psychology. Also, if you didn't know, James is a therapist and he loves dancing and he's looking to combine dance with therapy. Okay, so that has to do with like psychology plus dance. So continuing this tutorial, we got your tracing hand, right? And usually when you point at stuff, people tend to look, right? That's just human nature, right? Hey, look over here. So what you want to do is bring the attention to where you want to trace the wave. Does that make sense? So if I'm waving here, right? If I end up waving like down here, people aren't really gonna see it unless I go. See that? I'm going, hey, look at this. See? When you add the trace to it, it helps tell people what's going on, and you're communicating with your audience that, hey, the attention is over here, right? Versus just doing it, right? Because when you just do it, sometimes you end up looking at the wave as a whole, as opposed to looking at the position of the wave where it's at. Right? So that's tracing. Okay, so I used my pointer finger to trace the wave, and all that means is as you're doing a regular wave, right, you want to point at the peak of the wave. Okay, it doesn't have to be directly at the peak. Like, let's say if I waved and here's the peak, you don't actually have to point literally at the peak. You could point under it, to the side, this side, wherever you want, just the general region of where the action's happening, right? So that is generally what the tracing hand is gonna do. It's gonna trace the peaks and the points of interest, right? So if the point of interest is here, it starts here, so that's where I want to point. So you're gonna take your hand out, point at the front, it's gonna wave, start the wave, and then if you notice, all I did was move it from here to here. This doesn't do anything fancy. It actually just does this. I'm pointing at where I want the wave to go, right? And then you add in the wave. And I usually stop it at my shoulder, or you can stop it at your chest or this shoulder. Basically, wherever you can point on your body, you can trace, right? Because obviously if you're not flexible and you can't go like this, then you can't trace there, but you can if you stretch, right? So your tracing is limited to your flexibility. So, and that can always be improved. So let's start off with something where it requires little to none flexibility. So for example, we're gonna do a trace wave all the way across, okay? So from here, this will be the tracing hand. We're gonna point here, start the wave and go boop, elbow, shoulder. Okay, from here, we're gonna switch tracing hands. This is called the transition, okay? Basically, every time something switches, that's the transition for the trace. So if I trace up here, right, I'm gonna transition to here, right? All I did was go here. Once I got to here, I took my other hand that is now not active. I'm gonna activate it and turn this into the tracing hand, switch it to here, and then this is gonna continue the wave. Meanwhile, the other tracing hand just lets go, right? You switch it like this. It's like doing this and then like that. So boom, 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 boom. So start with this one, wave, switch. See that? That switch, wave it out. And you completed a full circle wave, right? I call that a circle wave just because it goes in a circle. The name doesn't really matter. The point is you're continuing that trace, so you could literally do it over and over again. And this is a good exercise for the basic trace mechanics, because not only does it teach you how to trace, it teaches you how to continue that trace if you get stuck. Because let's say you only trace with one finger, there's only so many ways you can go until it gets repetitive. You know what I mean? Right? So you're limited if you're just using one hand to trace. So I'm gonna teach you how to trace it and switch the tracing part so that you could continue the waving infinitely, right? So you have more possibilities that way. And it's all starting with the basic transition. So I used this part here because I feel like this is a general area, like this is just the center of your body, and it's easy to transition things because it's just close to you, you know, like home, right? And you want to use certain parts like your shoulders. You could transition from your elbows, your hips, your chest. Like for example, let's go here, right? Trace, go to our chest here. You could transition from your chest to your shoulder. So it's just easier, like wherever your hands can meet, that's where you can transition, or wherever your joints meet your hand is a good transition spot if the other hand could reach it. So for example, you could actually transition from this shoulder to this hand if your other hand can touch that shoulder. You know what I mean? So you can be like boom, boom, catch it. See? So this could be a transition point. This can be it. This, like basically anywhere your hands can connect, right? You want to connect it. And if you notice from here, right, I switched it to here. Once I got to here, how did I continue it? I just did a connecting hand wave, right? Because from here, right, it's about to end. How do you keep it from going, right? You go here, you do another transition wave. See that? You just let go of your hand, right? You turn this hand from tracing to a regular waving hand, right? So that's how I transition. And as I transition over, this slowly becomes the tracing hand, right? You just got to remember, here, boom, you turn it into the tracing hand. So this makes it easy to identify. Like obviously it could be anything. You don't even have to do this. This just makes it easier to spot, like which one's the tracing one, which one's not the tracing one. But check it out, you could actually make this your tracing hand as well. And this is a little more seamless, right? But it's a little more advanced because people, like sometimes it's harder to keep track of which one is which. So it just looks like you're just moving around. But if you have this, it's very easy to identify where the wave's at. See?
Ooh.
Right? Versus this. You could do the same thing with this, right? But once you start like switching and doing a bunch of stuff, it gets lost.
Yeah.
I mean, it depends on your style and the way you dance. There's nothing wrong with it, but this is just for basics. Basic purposes only, right? Another way you can do it is this is constantly waving, right? That's the trace hand, okay? We're gonna do a trace hand that actually moves, you know, because this actually could bring even more attention. It's like, hey, look what's going on like here, magician. And check it out. This is gonna do the same thing as it did earlier, but just with these wiggly fingers. I call them wiggly finglers. They're called finglers because they're wiggly fingers. Okay, and then throw that in. See, now it's even more interesting because you know for sure something's going on. Something's going on, right? Bam. And you can switch wiggly fingers or finglers, right? Or you can do it all over. And you could have 2 tracing hands.
Ooh.
Did you know that?
2?
I just found that out right now. I'm just kidding. But you can actually have 2 trace hands at the same time. You ever see people go like this? They're actually tracing with 2 tracing hands. That's some advanced stuff, right? Because then I could be like, and then trace you.
Ooh.
See? Tracing's not limited to just one body. Check that out, right? See? All I'm doing is tracing him. Wow, James is such a great assistant. Look at that. How do you feel?
I feel great. I feel like I've been traced on.
Nice. Now you know the depths of tracing and how advanced it could get and how basic it could be at the same time. So I recommend starting with the basics, right? Just one hand at a time, little to no motion, okay? And then as you get better at tracing, right, try going different directions, right? You can go behind your head, behind your back, down to the legs, down to your toes, right? You could actually trace all the way to your toes and back up, right? That's just one side. You could trace it too. Down here, transition to the other side, right? Or you can transition with the hands like that, as I was showing you, right? With just a regular hand wave. Or you can like bump it, switch hands, right? Cool. And that's it for basic tracing. I hope you enjoyed that. If you have any questions whatsoever about tracing or how to do it better, just go ahead and direct message me at can.poriotics on Instagram. Until next time, thanks James for joining me. You're awesome.
You're awesome.
He's the man. All right, see ya.